The game was against Garden Webb was a game just as we thought it would be, a very physical game. We were playing an opponent that we knew would continue to play hard for all four corners. They'd shown that on film against everybody they've played. I think they're a well-coached football team. So it was a physical battle, and obviously, we got a few guys banged up in that game, and which is always a little bit of a concern. But we knew going in that was going to be a contest where both teams would play very, very hard and play very, very physical. Some good things certainly in the ball game. Sebastian had another excellent game in terms of pass receiving. Quentin Maxwell finally got an opportunity to get in the game, and I think he showed as we thought he would show. He threw the ball well, was composed, stood in the pocket. When he had receivers open quickly, he got the ball to him very quickly, and yet let things develop when they needed to, and let it go at the last second. Took the hit. So all those are really positive, good things in terms of what he displayed when he got his opportunities at quarterback. So to me, that means we have an opportunity to have depth at the position. This week, obviously, will be another very physical football game. They've always been that between Ohio and Miami. Obviously, a big rival. It has been that way for many, many years, and so both teams will play very hard, and both teams will play for 4 quarters. If you go back through the history of the games, certainly since I've been here, most of those games have been that way, and we expect this one to not be really any different. Be glad to take any questions you might have.
Do you have any clarification or plan of attack regarding the running back position in the 48 hours since Saturday? Has anything clarified as far as that position group goes?
Not in terms of availability of those guys that were banged up going into the game. That's Dorian, Malik. Obviously, Poppy did not play in the second half. Vinny did have an injury that certainly took him out of the game and will most likely hold him out of this game. Bo kind of stands alone right now. We'll just see how tough Bo is, I guess. And he responded really well to that game and played on both sides of the ball very well. And what gets hidden is the fact that we continue to use him some on special teams, which we're going to have to take a strong look at. We cut him back in last week's game, but
still had him at gunner, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, still had him at gunner, and because he's been very valuable there. So, how it'll all play out, we're working on that right now as far as his use in special teams. We've got a couple guys will, as this unfolds, we'll see how it works, and I'll let you know exactly who they are and how they did here in the next couple of days of practice as to whether they'll be used as potential running backs or not.
Coach, you also talked about the tackling being sort of a weakness last game. How do you look to work on that this week?
Well, when I stated that, I'm standing on the sideline and I'm looking at things, and I'm looking at angles that our guys were taking, and then not keeping the cup is a term that we use an awful lot, trying to make sure that the runner stays within a group of guys. And, I think those things were not real sound at times, and that's going to have to obviously improve, not only for this game, but as we go through the season. Now, I think it showed more in this game than it has in other games for whatever reason. We've faced other really good running backs up to this point, but it showed some in the Tennessee game, but obviously those guys are going to do that a lot to a lot of teams. But you don't want to start seeing that with any kind of regularity. So tackling is something we've always worked on. We know how important it is to the game. So we spend a lot of time with our players on that. We just expect some better overall results. There were some guys that did a great job, and there were some tackles that were what you look for. But looking for a little more perfection on that.
The numbers in the red zone were much better on Saturday. How did you grade the execution?
Very good.
In the red zone?
There were a couple of just battling for the balls, where we won those battles. 5 touchdowns out of 7 attempts is a pretty good percentage. That's certainly acceptable. I think we were 4 for 4 on 4th down conversions. I don't believe all those were inside the red zone, but some certainly must have been. And so that always helps. Taking a few more chances from my end of it in terms of going on 4th down played out. Those kind of decisions don't always play out, but it did in this case, and that helps boost your statistics. Some great individual plays also by our players, and some play calling that give us a chance to do some of those things.
Coach, with the running backs being kind of slim right now, you guys gonna have more design runs for Greg?
We've already got quite a few in the arsenal. You don't see them all every game, but there are those plays that we work on with Greg, and I think both Greg and Quentin are capable of being excellent runners, and they got some size to them. They're not frail guys, and so you're not overly concerned about your quarterback being involved in the running game. In fact, that's the kind of quarterbacks we try to recruit, guys that can be.
Yeah.
But obviously, the more carries they get, the more vulnerability to injury is there, and you certainly don't want that to start to happen. And so they got to be smart in their running. They got to know when they're going for first or when they're going to have the ability to score, and certainly don't want them sliding and not getting those 2 things accomplished. So they're pretty smart runners, and we try to use them to their ability in that.
How would you evaluate them both? I know you're a run-heavy team, but recently with the running back situation, there's more reliance on the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that Greg's done a better job than you expected? Just receiving-wise, anything in that regard?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's done a good job, and we expected him to be a good thrower. He's certainly has the arm. His ball has a great deal of velocity when it's needed, and yet he has the ability to put some touch on the ball. So that's all pluses in terms of having an athlete that can do those things. Obviously you got to make sure that percentage-wise that you don't fall too low as a quarterback in your completion percentage. You don't have to be a 60% thrower or a 70% thrower to have a really good game or to even have a really good season. But obviously, you get in the high 50s and mid 50s, you can win that way. If you're a throwing team and you're start to complete right at 50, below 50, then you got yourself a problem. So Greg is, he's doing a lot of good things in the throwing game as well as the running game. I think our receivers are holding up their end of it. We maybe dropped a few, but probably not many as you go back through the first 4 games. And so I think it's a combination of that. As you know, our line has protected our quarterback well. All those things add to a quarterback's statistics.
Sounded like you wanted him to manage the game at the beginning of the season. Would you say he's now having to take more control of how the offense goes down the field?
Yeah, I think he's, gotten to where he really understands offensive football. And, that takes a while in anybody's system to get to that point where you're really confident, especially if you have somewhat of a multiple offense, which we think we do. You know, we have a lot of running game in our offense, a lot of patterns in our offense, a lot of different formations, and so when you have that, you know, you try to practice it as much as possible, but obviously you can't get a ton of reps to all that stuff, and so you just hope you perform it well enough that a multiple offense is a benefit to you, and he's playing at that level to be able to execute our offense.
Coach, early in the press conference, you mentioned that now you have opportunity to have depth at the quarterback position. Do you see Quentin splitting some snaps this week with Greg, or do you see?
No, Greg is the starting quarterback, and he'll operate as the starting quarterback in our system.
Also, you talked about using multiple formations, but with your running back depth not as good as it was, are you looking to maybe change up any of your formations at all?
Well, we've already got a ton of formations. We do look at the opposing team's film, and obviously if we see something that's there repeatedly, we'll find a way to try to get to that, you know, whether it's motioning or doing something to take advantage of something that they're going to have to show that they need to find a fix. Now, you know, we haven't found that in Miami's defense. They're really very, very good, but that's what you do in general when you're trying to put an offense together that has a chance to be somewhat complex for a defense. Gives them a lot of things to have to work for.
Do you like having a rivalry game as your league opener?
I think it's fine. You know, it makes no difference when you play that game. I think the fans get involved, the players get involved. So it's it happens to be our first game this year. I think everybody's fine with that. I think the fans appreciate it the most probably earlier in the year, to where it's good weather, you know, versus having a rivalry game right at towards the end of the year where the weather on a Tuesday night or whenever it could be played at 8 o'clock in the evening is maybe not what anybody looks for.
Seeing it as this is a rivalry game, the first conference game, do you kind of expect Miami to unveil anything different than what you've seen on film in the past couple weeks?
Well, I think they'll take the same approach. They'll be a bit physical on both sides of the ball. They've got a good athletic football team. They've played a tough schedule up to this point, so I don't see them feeling they need to deviate from what they've been doing. But obviously, most everybody looks for a few things here or there to add for this kind of game, your opening conference game, a rivalry game. So you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we you know, see a thing or two that they'll utilize to try to catch us. You know, so.
Does the mentality change at all? So now you go from 2-2 to 0-0 in terms of conference play.
You know, we're where we're at. Our numbers put us where we're at. But obviously, starting conference play for us, we do kind of wipe the slate clean. You know, we keep track of all statistics. I'm in front of them every Monday going through the statistics of the game and where we rank nationally in a lot of those things. Now we'll just start with where we'll have the game itself broken down statistically, but we'll also start conference numbers as to where we're going to be ranked at the end of one conference game versus everybody else in the conference ranked after one game. And we'll also continue to add that game then to the national, to our complete schedule, so that we'll show where we rank, continue to rank nationally as we go through the season. So we'll have a conference ranking and a national ranking. And so in that regard, we do wipe the slate clean and get ready to go.
Coach, Sebastian Smith has had 2 very good games in a row, and with your running back depth not at its best right now, he's always heavily involved in your game plan. But is he going to be more involved now since the running backs are kind of slim?
Well, it's difficult to get him too much more involved. He's to be honest with you, has not been 100%, and so his reps are at a point where we're trying to make sure he stays healthy and we can keep him on the field. He hasn't had opportunities in practice to really condition at a level, that allows you to take 50 snaps as a receiver.
Yeah.
We tried that early on. That was difficult, and so, we'll just try to make sure we continue to use him in a manner that kind of highlights him when he is in there to a degree. Although we're the type of team that goes through a lot of reads, does a lot of things, tries to spread the ball around. I don't know how many receivers caught passes in last week's game, Anthony. You tell me it's 9 or 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a bunch. That's spreading the ball around. So we'll continue to do that, but obviously they need to know where he's at on the field as an opponent, and us also.
So he's still not 100% though?
Well, he seems to play well for a period of time, and then it gets to where it's nagging a little bit, but we're hoping that as he continues to go here, that it continues to get better.
Any questions, Coach?
Just one last thing. Is it different for you now entering the conference play where you do have these injury problems? Because it seems like that's something that's always popped up as the season's gone on.
Yeah, that's obviously a part of football, and I think most every team faces it at some point in time during the year. Right now we're seemingly getting hit at one or two positions, and that gets tough when that happens, because we feel we have pretty good depth across the board on our football team, but you look at you look at how it works with the number of backs we have banged up, and you start to get stretched pretty thin. Kylan is a safety that was injured and didn't play in last week's game, and so Bo, who now getting all those reps, is now on offense, getting reps, and so it stretches you in different places. Not having a bye week until the 9th game of the season, and that's when we come off of a 5-day turnaround. Would you like to have that placed a little differently? No question. We'd take a bye about now, or about any time prior to 9 games, actually. So it's where it's at. Everybody faces that at some point in time in your career.
Coach, how important is the offensive line going to be just moving forward into conference play, just with the uncertainty at running back?
Yeah, that'll be huge, and them staying healthy will be huge. Because if that depth starts to get cut down, obviously then it becomes a factor. They're doing a really good job. I really like what our offensive line has been about. I could say the same thing really of our defensive line. Both line plays have been really very good. Guys play hard. They're tough, physical football players. And so they need to continue to respond the way they have. We need to find a way to get some running game going. They are very tough to run against, and they're a strong, physical, defensive football team. So, we're going to have to do an exceptional job up front to be able to find some creases, obviously.
How would you classify? You've called them physical, you've called them tough a couple times now, but Miami has always been one of those pass-first offenses. How would you describe their approach this season offensively?
Well,
Are they still looking for good quarterback play? Have they settled on an identity?
Yeah, Billy Ball, I think, is playing really well for him. He's completing 56% of his passes. He's a drop-back quarterback at 6'4", and that's how they utilize them. Their receivers are two of their starting receivers 6'4", the other one's 6'5", and then they have an H receiver there that's 5'10", you know. But 2 6'4" and 1 6'5" guys tells you that they like to throw it up. And if you look at their yards per catch, I mean, you're looking at 18, 16, 22. I mean, so they're throwing deep, they're going up, they're getting the ball, they're putting the ball in the air quite a bit. You know, their up front people are big. They pass pro really well, and so right now, you know, that's somewhat their identity. I'm not saying they can't run, because they do run, but obviously they're a team that likes to throw. They're set to throw, but will mix in a running game that if you're not careful, you're getting hurt by both, the run and the pass.
Also, with their wide receivers, you know, like you said, being so big, what are you telling your corners this week to do to defend them to their best ability?
Grow a little taller in a few days. No, in all honesty, you know, we have pretty tall receivers, and so they're going against them every day. Now, we don't have two guys out there that are 6'4" and the other one's 6'5", but you know, our guys have been up against some pretty tall receivers at Tennessee, and so you just got to learn how to play the ball, and it's all about timing as a defensive back, you know, and then it's a matter of competing, and I think our guys compete great, and you know, they're not as experienced in most cases, except for Torrin in the secondary, but they you know, they will battle you, and they're getting better every game. So they'll be tested without question this week.
Coach, what's the status of Kyler Nelson?
That remains to be seen yet. You know, he's certainly made improvement. If it's been enough for him to be ready for this game, you know, we'll know in not too long a time.